Hi guys, Ronnie here and welcome to the workshop. As you can see, there's a lot going on at the moment, but not necessarily training wise. As I said last time, with this coming off season, I finally put together my first gravel bike build, which is based on open up frame set, as you can probably guess from this image. And today I'm going to talk you through all about the setup. So let's get into it. So first, a bit of a background check. I've been wanting to get this open up frame set and build a bike on it for a couple of years now, but somehow I never really got to it because of various reasons. And this year I finally managed to pull the trigger on it. The reason being, I spent an awful lot of time on Zwift during last winter, which is fine, but training wise and well, mentally, it's much better if I do the training outside whenever possible, and on the road, you know, if the temperatures go to zero or close to it, then it's really not that viable, at least for me, as an option. But maybe with the gravel bike, its off-road capability, tire clearance, slower speeds, etc., will enable me to spend much less time indoors. So that's what I'm hoping for. And yeah, it's just good fun to mix it up a little bit. I ride a lot, very long rides as well during my endurance training on my local roads. So by the end of the season, it always becomes a little bit boring. So this way I can still mix it up a little bit. So this is why I decided to get a gravel bike in the first place, to do some off-roading. I had a mountain bike before, but there aren't really very good conditions to ride a mountain bike here, not many technical trails, but there are a lot of good places for a bike like this. So that's why I went for a gravel bike instead. So, what did I choose to build it up with? Well, it might not be your typical gravel bike setup. There are many very non-gravelly things on there. Due to my, well, preferences as a road cyclist, mostly time trialist, should I say. It's different than people normally do. But this frame set complements these choices and enables it. So first, a couple of words about the choice of the frame itself. It's the OG gravel bike, basically. It has good clearance, it's not too expensive, it's readily available actually. So if you want to get yourself one, then I'll be happy to help you out. Anyway, it also looks quite good, doesn't have any super integrated features, and most importantly, it's still pretty close to road geometry. The reason why I couldn't go for other gravel bikes such as the Specialized Diverge is that it's just basically a mountain bike in terms of fit. It's way too tall in the front end, like many other options, so really not a thing for me. If you look at this bike, I went for a size small frame set, which is undersizing in my case. The reason being, I wanted to go low on the stack, and the small frame enables me to do that. But being a gravel bike, the reach is much shorter than it would be on my tarmac, which I ride pretty stretched out already. It's a 52 centimeter frame with a 130 stem on there. So I opted for a 140mm stem on the open. It's probably not what the designers had in mind with this frame, but it handles okay, more than okay actually. And it's still quite a bit shorter than my road bike, but for winter it's fine, it's a bit more comfortable this way. Stack wise, as you can see, I haven't fully decided what to do with it. Yeah, I have 10mm of spacers either way. It's a 12-degree negative rise stem. So yeah, handling wise, I might try the lower option, Probably not the taller one, it's quite tall as it is, sorry. So yeah, but I'm happy with how it fits, how it performs. Another, or well, one of the odd things about the open frame set is that it's designed to do away with an inline seat post. That means the seat tube itself is a bit slacker than you would find otherwise. That means my saddle is slammed quite far forward, as you can see, but even if it doesn't look like it, it's just done to match the position on the tarmac, which is not extreme at all. It just, even with an inline seat post, it seems quite far forward, but when I hop on the bike I really can't tell from the seating position which one it is, so that's all well and good. Now, fit aside, this bike handles very differently than a road bike. It's much more stable, should I say, not as darty or pointy, not as reactive on the front end, which is of course good when you're traveling over the rough stuff. However, it did require some getting used to, but now I'm past that, so I'm enjoying it. At first it was, well, a bit weird, but I got the hang of it now, and yeah, I can transition from one bike to the other without any issues. So now let's talk components, because really I've already mentioned the stem, usually not what people put on their gravel bikes, a 130 -12 stem, but that's just me being me. So let's look at some other stuff. The group set, as you can see, is another non-gravelly piece of kit, so that's a full-on the Race Di2 group set. Nothing really special about it, it just works, it's what I had. Group set wise, particularly when you're talking about electronics, it's quite hard at the moment. Actually, I wanted to switch it up to put the Shimano back on the tarmac, so I have the two racing bikes on the same brand group set because it's more practical, and I would have really loved the Campy on the open. It would be a nice combo because I really love the Campy stuff as well. There's one thing though that prevented me from doing it, and that's the lack of clearance at the front mech. As you can see, that's a 26mm tire, it's already pretty close, so with the 36 that I have on the open, it would be a total no-go. To be honest, I miss the hood shaping and the braking power and modulation of the Campy on the open. Would have been nice, but never mind, it is what it is. It's not bad either, it's just different, I would say. Sticking with the cockpit, I have an NV compact road handlebar in size 38. Again, that's the size I have on a road bike. I wanted it to be the same. No crazy flared wide gravel bars for me. That's, sorry, just no thanks. Not my cup of tea, really. I would just say it's really uncomfortable for me to ride anything wider than a 38. I would even go down to 35, 36, or even, well, Rebull have their 33 now, which I'm very intrigued about, so stay tuned for that. Anyway, it's 38 for now. Another good thing about this handlebar is that it fully integrates the Di2 cabling, which makes it a clean look. And also it's clip-on air bar compatible, so unlike many other options, this being a gravel bike, with the possible option of going to gravel races in the future. Yeah, it's a thing that I like to explore later on. I forgot to mention the type of the stem, so the size you already know, it's an S-Works Tarmac stem. Again, it's just a thing that I had here, so I've used it. With the stem, of course, goes the very neat computer mount from my Wahoo. And yeah, this is the standard integrated units from Specialized, so really nice stuff. The bar tape is some gray MV bar tape, also a thing that I really like. Actually, it's upcycled from a previous build from the Atos, so yeah, it didn't go to waste. It fits this bike nicely. Again, the handlebar, same fate, upcycled from the ATOS, so I just had this stuff laying around. Another interesting feature about or of the up frame set is the U-turn fork, so it is called, and the interesting thing about it is the front brake mount. Nowadays you can only see it or also see it on BMC bikes. It just basically copies the design of the rear chainstays. It does away with the front brake adapter. This means you can only run 160 rotor on there, which is not my favorite. I prefer 140, but it is what it is. There's not much you can do about it. The wheels are Head Vanquish RC4 Pros, which I had as my spare wheels for the road bike. So they're now doing second duty for the winter here. And they're a good match for this bike. They're nice and wide, not too deep. Also a slight aero hint there. So it's a good match, as I said, very light too. I fitted them with Challenge Strada Bianchi 36mm tires. This is the Pro version with the supple casing. It's basically an open tubular, but it has a pretty tough puncture protection layer in there. Pretty unexpected, but yeah, it's there. And another thing that's quite unusual, maybe for a gravel bike, is that these are regular clinchers. In fact, I even have latex tubes in there for low rolling resistance and some pinch flat protection. So yeah, another very road-like thing in the setup. These tires were actually much harder to fit than I expected. It took a little bit of wrestling, but in the end I managed to do that. Should be easier now in case I get a puncture. Going further down the bike, we have MV bottle cages, nice and secure. I've been using these for a while on other builds as well, and for customers. Everyone's happy, so that includes me. On the front Mech, I have a mandatory K-Edge chain catcher. I really wouldn't have a bike without one. You just never know, particularly off-road, it could be very helpful. The crankset is a bit of a deviation from Shimano. It's a SramForce dub unit, 170mm length, the cork power meter, of course. The gearing, now that's another thing that's very different than people run on their gravel bikes. Normally you would find a one bike setup, perhaps with a 40 to 42 tooth chainring. That's not really up my alley either. I wouldn't say I'm super fast, but maybe I'm fitter than the general public. So I need gearing to match. On the road I can go very nearly as fast on this bike as on a road bike. In fact, even when I was riding off-road, I was never in the little ring, apart from some steep climbs. So yeah, I'm happy with this choice. This is a 5236 semi-compact on the front, 1130 at the rear, so pretty much standard road gearing nowadays. You get this on most road bikes, and it fits me and the use case here very, very well. One thing I will add further on is a bit of protecting tape. I should have done this earlier to protect the cranks from scratches. It's pristine now, but I want to keep it that way. The pedals, again, a bit of an unorthodox choice. These are Speedplay Paves. So basically the stripped down version of the regular Zero. Also has the titanium axle. This is actually a pretty rare component, designed for Paris-Roubaix, and yeah, I use it for the same reason. You can still clip in after you put your foot in some mud. So pretty useful in these gravelly conditions. But it's essentially a road pedal to be used with road shoes. So again, very road-like in this regard as well. Then further back again and up, we have an MV carbon seat post, pretty standard. Then we have the S-Works Power Mimic cell which I've been using a lot. I've replaced it with the mirror version on the tarmac. I still have this one, so it fits me very well. No reason to change it. Of course, there's the Silka spare bag, or whatever you call it, a saddle bag, where I have my spares for the punctures. Which brings me on to the next odd thing about the open frame set. So you do get some nice true axles as part of a frame set from Carbon TI. The problem is that unlike 99% of other bikes, they're not operated with a 6mm hex key but a 5 instead. And that makes it a little bit inconvenient for me, because I just realized that in case I did get a puncture in the first couple of rides, I wouldn't have been able to fix it, because I only have a 6mm in the saddlebag, because, well, specialized frame sets all use 6mm Allen keys as their through axles. So yeah, I need to keep an eye on that and change it, or maybe change the through axles, swap them over with the sheave until that is on the trainer or something like that. I need to think of. Rear wheel, of course, same as the front one. They're actually all equipped with ceramic speed bearings. Same goes for the bottom bracket, and as you can see in the oversized pulley wheel system. I just had these laying around, so they went in there. Two good components to be wasted on the shelf. The rear one is a Dura-Ace roller, 140mm, and the cassette, as I mentioned already, 1130. Another odd thing about the open frame set, you do get a spare derailleur hanger for the rear of the bike, but there's no Shimano direct mount option, and I haven't seen one available aftermarket from Open either, so that's a bit of a shame. I really like that design, and yeah, it's a small brand that keeps an eye on the details, so I would have loved that to be included, but maybe in the future they will. The chain is of course standard Dura-Ace chain. I've recently started using the Silka hot melt wax, because I ran out of molten speed wax, and it's performing remarkably so far. So nothing special to mention there. What else about the bike really? Just some comments about the design of the frame set. So this is probably the bike that started off with a drop chainstay design to enable tire clearance and 2x compatibility as well. Got some autofocus issues there, sorry. This makes for some limited clearance here at the chainrings. Open actually state that the chaining option that I have installed shouldn't really fit, but it does, and it works perfectly, and there's a ton of clearance, so no issues there. That the chainstay is covered, widely asymmetrical, also flattened, so they're actually quite wide with quite a shallow profile to be able to flex. Obviously the big thing on the gravel bike is tires. You might get a couple of percent of flex from the bike itself, but the majority comes from the tires, the majority of your suspension. One thing I'd like to mention here is I used the Silka tire pressure calculator a lot for the road. I tried using it here and it came out totally useless, because it suggested a pressure of 49 psi for my tires and weight, and that was just ridiculously hard. You know, even for the road I could feel every crack on it at that pressure, because you need to know, if you have a large tire and you inflate it a lot, then it becomes extremely hard and stiff. So I kept dropping down the pressure until I arrived today at a pressure of 28 psi, so basically slightly above half of what the calculator has suggested. So really not in the same ballpark, and now it's stiff enough to not bottom out on rocks, but it's also good enough for comfort and grip off-road, so I'm sticking with that so far. The seat stays also very thin from this profile, but quite wide and heavily flattened from this side. Pretty interesting design, also commonly copied. One thing I don't really like is the junction here, this flat part. It just looks kind of odd to me, but maybe that's just me. The flattened shape also means that it's quite hard to mount the Velcro tapes for my mud guards, so yeah, a bit tricky. The front mech mount is removable, of course. I have that on. Another little issue that I had, or not issue, but you know, I'm just nitpicking here, but as you can see, maybe the Di2 cable exits from the frame at quite far down, and it goes all the way here exposed until it hits the front mech, so it's just not very protected. I can very well imagine that it could be torn by a rock strike or something mangled in there, a branch or a piece of wood perhaps, during riding and damage it, so they could have brought the hole closer up like on some other bikes. I would have preferred that, definitely. Also the seat clamp, not the nicest of designs either, so I might change that to a machined one. Bottle location is okay. Bottom bracket, some issues we're having. Some people have been having issues with their bottom brackets. It's a BB386. I think it's one of the better standards because, well, it's not asymmetric. It's a nice wide shell. Also large diameter cups in there. Mine fitted without any issues. Obviously no creaking so far, so that's fine. The headset you get is from Cane Creek, so pretty good quality in there. Yeah, and I think that just sums up the bike. One other thing or complaint that I would have is about the cable routing. So this little port cover that we have here, held on by 1.5mm Allen key operated tiny bolt, not very sturdy or stable, not very idiot proof at all, I would say. So I can definitely see how people are damaging theirs. And I had a bit of a problem routing the front brake hose through the fork as well. It's just because the diameter of the hose doesn't allow the Park Tool routing cable to be fitted through, and you're just supposed to push it up at the bottom and it should come out automatically on the top, but unfortunately it just didn't. So I needed really badly to use the routing tool, which I couldn't. So in the end I took the Dremel and I enlarged the hose a little bit so the routing tool would go through, and that meant that I could just pull the brake hose through easily enough. So a couple of small issues, otherwise the bike rides great, the finish is nice, the paint job is nice, and generally the build quality seems to be okay. I've measured the frame set, or the frame without hardware at 1070 grams. Does it really matter? Not to me. I'm not a weight weenie at all. In fact, one thing that would matter is low rolling resistance, which I believe I have with these tires and the correct pressures, and also I'm reasonably aero because I have a long and low position still, thanks to the handlebars and stem combination. So yeah, as I said, the speeds I get out of this bike, even off-road, around 30 kilometers per hour average, so at zone 2 pace, should I say. So not that bad at all. Yeah, so that pretty much sums up my first experiences with this open up gravel bike slash frame set. I hope you have found this informational and useful. If you want to know more about my bike setups, then I'm going to bring you some more overviews in the coming weeks or days even. And I'm also planning to do a bit of a recap from the European and World Championships with some data from me and other riders as well. So if you're interested in that, let me know in the comments so I can push it further up the schedule. Okay, so this is getting long enough already. So I hope we see each other in the next one, and see you until then.